Hey, Scott from MyGrowthRings.com here. Here happens to be my garage once again, where for the first time I'm being joined by several flies, so that's something new. Hey, I want to show you something really cool today, something that will take your jigs and fixtures to a new level. But first, I want to tell you the background of this story. Also, just so you know, I'm adding little shortcuts in the description below on YouTube, and those on some devices are now showing up in the timeline. So if you want to skip forward through my nonsense and my yammering, you're welcome to, although, I don't know, backstories are kind of fun. So going back to late 80s, early 90s, I was the academy instructor at the factory showroom in Dayton, Ohio at Shopsmith. And every Thursday night, all around the country in 50 locations, 50 academy instructors would step up in front of an audience, a live audience, and do a presentation. We were all teaching on the same topic every Thursday night. These were called Sawdust Sessions, by the way. But we all had our own take on it. And it was really very fun for us to compare notes and share plans and talk about what we were planning on doing in the upcoming Thursday Sawdust Sessions. But one of my favorite parts on Thursday nights were the interaction between me and the audience. And we would have somewhere between 30 and I think our record was like 180 people coming on a Thursday night, depending on the topic. But we would begin with sort of a show and tell time. And always front and center, I had three guys, John Keller, Max Marshall, and Bill Bittner. And these guys were my version of, if you know from the Muppet Show, Statler and Waldorf. Well, these guys were my hecklers. They were very active woodworkers, very proficient with their Shopsmith equipment, but just hilariously entertaining to me as a presenter. And one of those nights, Bill Bittner took the stage and said, "Hey, I got something new that I've invented I want to share with you. Check this out." Now, what he's holding up is a half-inch nut. So what? We've all seen a half-inch hex nut. But what Bill had done was he had pressed a 1/4-20 nut into it. And what he did was he created his version of a knob, like the Knurled knobs that we were using on all of our jigs and fixtures. And he explained that, you know, he was paying several dollars each for these fancy schmancy little Knurled knobs. I've seen them up to $5 each. Please don't pay $5 for them. You can find them if you buy them in bulk, let's say a buck or so a piece. But Bill showed us how for pennies you could make your own Bittner Nut. Or Bittner, yeah, we called them Bittner Nuts, and named for Bill Bittner. And here's the trick behind these. You start with a grade 2 1/4-inch nut, not only because it's softer and it's going to accept the harder grade 5 or grade 8 1/4-20 nut, but they're less expensive. You know, as long as one of these is hard and one of these is soft, they'll press together just fine. But by going with the half-inch in the soft version, grade 2, and the 1/4-20 with the hard nut, you got the best of both worlds, the economy of the less expensive half-inch nut and the strength of the smaller nut. And just for fun, right, so there's a 1/4-20 grade 8 package of nuts, 4 of them there for, I think I paid 88 cents for those. They actually had larger packages as well, bigger. There's my half-inch. And then my recommendation for you, if you make any jigs or fixtures, is buy these in bulk. Buy them from Fastenal, from Grainger, McMaster-Carr, companies like that. Now you're talking maybe 5, 6, 7 cents for the half-inch nuts, and just mere pennies for the 1/4-20. All right, I bought these in grade 8, and I bought those in grade 2. So you can, first off, you press these in with a vise. You want to get access to the best vise you can. In my case, the strongest vise I have access to is one that's available at our shop at work. And you want to line these up one inside the other, get them into the jaws, and then you're going to turn for all you're worth. and you're going to press them in. Now you can press them perfectly flush, and that is actually the way Bill used to make them. But I have found that by leaving the 1/4-20 nut a little bit proud, it gives us a little more clearance so that when we tighten these down, we don't have that entire broad surface tight against our jig or against a washer. So leave that a little bit proud. It's also less work. So I use these things, for example, here's a tapering jig I made a long time ago. In fact, I don't even use this anymore. I made it a cherry. It's nice and pretty. I rounded over, chamfered the edges. And I found that I actually prefer doing tapers on the bandsaw instead of the table saw. This was built for my table saw. But right there, there's a Bittner nut that I made, I don't know, 25 years ago or so. And other places, like on this jig, where I attach this to the main table on my Mark V using this little fella that Shopsmith calls a T-Nut. Now you're right, T-Nuts are not these. T-Nuts are the little nuts that have little barbs on them that you drive them in. It doesn't matter, that's what Shopsmith calls a T-Nut. And they sell these with 1/4-20 threads and with, I think, 3/8-16 threads as well. But you can see the way I use this one is I slide it into my table here and here, and I'm tightening it with a screwdriver, which is just silly. But what I don't want to do with this is I don't want the threads to come all the way through and push down on the bottom of my miter slot. So instead what I want it to do is I want it to pull on that T-nut and be tight, and once it's tight, I don't want the tip of that bolt sticking out. So what I created years ago based on this idea that Bill came up with is something that we're just going to go ahead and call a Bittner Knob, all right, in honor of Bill Bittner. So what I did was I pressed in a 1/4-20 nylon locking nut, and then I use a 1/4-20 cap screw driven in. Now those can be made again of any length. I leave that 1/4-20 nut sitting a little bit proud, and that way again it allows me to tighten and loosen this. I can use then any length of bolt there that I need. And yeah, you can buy these as well at the hardware store, a couple bucks each, and they're in whatever length they happen to have. So maybe they're not long enough, maybe they're too long. You can make these. So when I went to the hardware store, I bought, out of their little expensive little drawers, 2 of the, I don't know which ones these are. Okay, let's say that 26 cents I paid for each 2 of the 1/2-inch nuts, 35 cents each, 2 of the nylon insert nuts, and for 36 cents I bought 2 of the cap screws. $2.07 I believe was a total with tax, right? So now we're looking at let's say $1.04 a piece for each of these Bittner knobs, and these are a couple bucks each. And if you buy your nuts and your lock nuts and things in quantity, okay, you know where I got that one, tons of them, they'll cost you almost nothing. I have made these using brass nuts. They press together real easy. If you don't have access to a strong vise, then maybe you'll want to do that. They do cost a little more, but they work just fine. And if you do break your vise in making these, you needed to. Your vise isn't good enough. You need to, that's my advice on your vise. But the best thing about the Bittner nut and the Bittner knob, besides the fact that I can turn that really easily, let's say that I need a little more torque on them. That's right, I can stick a wrench on it. Bill Bittner was brilliant. We lost Bill late last year. Bill was featured in a Shopsmith video that's available here on YouTube. I'll link to it below. But here's a little bit from Bill himself.
Why do people go out in the woods and carve their name on a tree? So that a long time from now, that's still going to be there. Well, I think that's a little bit of immortality that we want. It sounds better than a headstone. By going over to Shopsmith and seeing what some of these fellows turned out, built my confidence. And if they can do it, I can do it. And I wanted a trestle table. We needed a dining room table. Since I'm now a woodworker, I was going to make one, but I really didn't know how to do it, and I didn't have the confidence. And I finally tackled the job. They created a monster when they gave me all those blue ribbons, but I'm proud of it. We wanted a new kitchen. We wanted a brighter kitchen, and I could have went to the store and bought them, but since I was a woodworker, I decided I'm going to make them myself. It took me 6 weeks to get them put together, but that's not very long. It hurts me to cut a board that's so beautiful sometimes, but I know that by cutting it, it's going to turn into something a lot nicer.
Anyway, that's my tip for the week. Be sure to leave your questions, comments, and cheap shots below, and we'll address that midweek with our Stumped Q&A. That's it for me. Make it a great week.